Brakatay hour shy, Brakatay hour, Brakatay hour shy, Brakatay hour, Brakatay hour shy. O praise unto Yahweh Shemi Al Shai Ba'ashim Kakadash. Double honors unto the apostles, a great millstone, and honors you brothers to be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. So this is gonna be a video. That's saying right there. Drop the phone. Okay, so this is gonna be a video. I'm gonna call this video Ham. Okay, Africa, Israelites. Okay, with commas or something like that to separate the distinction between the three classifications of people, of which you can have an Israelite that lives out there within Africa, and you can have a Hamite that lives out there within Africa, just like how you can have a Hamite or Israelite that lives out there in any place of the world. Okay, but what you can't do is you can't get an Israelite out of a Hamite, and you can't get a Hamite out of an Israelite. Okay, that is to say, the Most High has got it right now as it stands. If you go into the book of Isaiah, you find out that there's a covering cast over all the people, and a lot of people, they don't know what nations they're coming from, man. Okay, their actual true biblical identity. Okay, so I'm gonna speak about some history. Okay, you can check out the history. You can Google search the history in your own time. I'm gonna speak about some history about the land of Africa, okay, which is not the land of Ham. It's the land, well, I suppose it is the land of Ham. But what I'm trying to say is you don't only have Hamites over there in Africa. Rather, you got you got strongholds, major strongholds of Israelites out there within Africa, okay, especially within the western part of Africa. I'm from the southern part of Africa, the land known as Zimbabwe, okay. But pretty much although you had it to where you had Ham dwell up in that land for the most part, you had Israelites that was dispersed throughout that land. Good examples that come to mind, good biblical examples of other nations living in lands that was traditionally not theirs. You had Agag that was living in Egypt. That's well documented within the scriptures, and he later came back to his land, which was Edom. You had the Herod. Okay, he was dwelling in Jerusalem, and he was actually the king of. He was a vassal. Okay, underneath the Roman Empire, that he was set up as a puppet king. Okay, but he was actually like a king within Israel, the Herodian line. Okay, and they was Edomites. All right. What other examples come to mind? You had Haman. Okay, Haman was an Edomite. He was out there within amidst the Assyrians. Okay, what else comes to mind? And many other examples. There's loads of examples, man. Okay, of people of other nations dwelling in lands other than their own birth nations. Right? The assumption that one makes when you say all people from Africa are Hamites is that the generational travel has not occurred. Okay, so I got this image here. Okay, this is an Ashanti priest, and I'm sure brothers, when I put this, I was reading a particular book called Hebrewisms in West Africa. And I'm still reading that particular book. It's a hard read, but it's a good read. Okay, and really, I was reading it because the job I do, you have to have a good memory, and the best way to one of the best and easiest ways to exercise your mind, both for this truth, for your day-to-day work, and just in general, is to read. It is of a surety what the scripture says when it says, "Blessed is he that readeth." My mind has improved, man. Okay, my mind has definitely improved. I can retain more information within my mind just for the pure thing of reading. Now, I get to do a video out of the material I've read. That's a bonus. Okay, that's a blessing for the Most High. So I was reading this book, and it's one of the main, main premise of the book is that there's a lot of Hebrewisms within West Africa, but even the people in West Africa don't stay local. You're gonna meet Ghanaians in Senegal. You're gonna meet Ghanaians in Cape Town. Okay, you're gonna meet Nigerians. Okay, in Egypt. Okay, people don't stay local to the position that the place that they was born in. All right, but one of the things that was being mentioned within the book of Hebrewisms in West Africa, there was there was a lot of talk. There was a lot of examples of ancient Hebrew culture that's filtered down, okay, into what you know as the so-called Gold Coast right now, okay. And this image here shows an Ashanti priest with a 12 tribes sign, okay, a signet, if you will, Okay, liken that off onto a Levitical priest who had the 12 stones representing the 12 tribes of Israel, and that was the garments they wore. So that's just a minor example. Now we're going to speak about the history of people and how they move. This is a little brief history on how people move. Okay, and we can quote particular scriptures. Okay, dealing with that. Okay, so when we go into the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter on the 64th verse, you find that Mosiah, one of the curses that he put upon us, and it is a curse. Okay, one of the curses that the Mosiah put upon the 12 tribes of Israel, he said that we was going to be scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay, now that might seem insignificant at the first glance and why that is a curse, but there is power in numbers and there is culture in numbers. You can sustain a culture if you have a stronghold. But we lost our culture. The book of Jeremiah 17:4. Correct me if I'm wrong. Jeremiah 14:2 or 17:4. Okay. Correct me. Let me. I'll go to my Bible on the side. I'll read it out loud here. Okay. Jeremiah. The book of Jeremiah. It might be 14:2 or is it 17:4? Okay, 14:2 says, okay, the gates thereof language. Okay, Jeremiah 17:4, it says, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee. So the Most High gave us an heritage. Why is this important? Okay, why is the thing of us discontinuing it from our heritage a curse? Why is us as a nation being scattered throughout the four corners of the earth a curse? For the simple fact that what? That through numbers, there is heritage. Okay, you can maintain a stronghold of people through numbers, man, a culture. Okay, and if we was gonna keep a culture that is the 12, that is the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans, the 12 tribes of Israel was gonna maintain a culture, then ultimately what we was gonna be able to do was gonna be able to maintain, at least in a small part, a part of the covenant. Okay, and some of us was gonna be right, and some of us was gonna be on point. But the more side, the way he wrote the story was that we was going to go off. So in dispersing us, it made it to where we was going to really depart from the covenant of the Lord. And it was going to allow the time for the wicked to rise and rule the earth. So that when righteousness is reestablished pursuant to the book of Daniel, the 2nd chapter on the 44th verse. Okay, when righteousness was going to be reestablished within the earth. Okay, the value of righteousness was going to be that more magnified. Just like how the Lord hideth himself, the scripture says, surely thou art a power that hideth thyself. When he appears, it's going to have a lot more presence simply for the fact that what? His name is being almost in obscurity. Okay, we the Israelites are only people that speak about the name of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. So it was like it was almost in the obscurity. So when it becomes back in prevalence, it's going to be, it's going to have power to it, man. Okay, so thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I'll cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not. Okay, which is the land of America and so on and so forth. All the different lands that we was made to serve. Now a little minor footnote. Okay, right. Let's go back onto the documented enslavements of the 12 tribes of Israel and understand how that will result in Israelites being scattered in other different places and lands. We start with the Assyrian captivity of the northern tribe, okay, which was, the northern tribe, which was the Latin American speaking tribes that was carried away, okay, by the Assyrians under Shalmaneser the fifth, I forget. I'm embarrassed, I've forgotten that. Sargon the second and Shalmaneser, and then the main guy, which was Tiglath-Pileser the third, okay. Right, he was the pioneer of the rising. Tiglath-Pileser III was the pioneer to the rising of the Assyrian Empire, if I'm not mistaken, and he was very prominent, especially with regards to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he took down, okay, him and his progeny took down, okay, the Northern Kingdom, which was the Latin American speaking tribe, the 10 tribes, and carried them away captive into Assyria. Okay, he uprooted them. In uprooting them, okay, pursuant to the book of 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, we find out that the vast majority of them had moved into the Americas. So that's how we identified that what? The Latin American speaking tribes, the Native Americans, okay, the Mexicans, okay, which I was just around about some Mexicans just a second ago. Okay, they're Israelites, man. And you can see that there was a bond, a family, a camaraderie between all of us. Me, a brother from Nigeria, a Jake from Nigeria. Okay, not a brother, but it's a Jake, I know. Okay, that I train with sometimes. Okay, and me and these three Mexicans, and it was like one big family. Because why? Because spiritually speaking, it is one big family. Okay, because to continue with the history, all right, is with no doubt that some of the Israelites that was in Assyria, okay, some of the northern tribes would have stayed there. That's why you get people like out there that are homeless and they're living in a jacked up situation out there with this whole Syria situation and the immigration situation. I take that as a quote from the elder Ariam Lab that had made a video and he made the same example going back maybe 2 to 3 years ago. Okay, continuing with the story of enslavement. After the Assyrians, you had the Babylonians, okay, which was according to my memory, okay, they was the cousins to the Assyrians. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. And they had taken down Judah, okay, just like how it says within the book of Hosea 1:5. Okay, Israel was gonna fall first, but Judah shortly followed after, man. Okay, Judah shortly followed after because they went in the same way as Israel went. Israel being the northern tribe and Judah being what? Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. So when you go into the so-called Amalekites, okay, which are really Edomites, the people that call themselves Jews today, when they call themselves Jews, okay, they're trying to assimilate, all right, and take the identity of just the 3 tribes that was left after the Assyrians took what? 10 tribes away into captivity. Continuing with the story, the Babylonians, pursuant to the book of Daniel, the 2nd chapter, took the choice, okay, of the choices of the Israelites, okay, the ones that was well favored from the Most High, and they had skills. Elder Orion made a video just yesterday going into that. Okay, I believe the name of the video was called Wisdom and something else. Okay, it was an insightful video because it goes to show you that, a man could boast about he's got this, that, and the third. All these gifts come from Yahweh Hashem Shai. Okay, and when you're in this truth, a gift could be to your benefit, like charm, wit, and charisma could be to your benefit. But it could also be to your demise, man. Okay, Jake is a supplanter. The word Jacob, if I'm not mistaken, means supplanter. You can supplant your way into some problems, and you can supplant your ways out of some problems. So within this society, the society that we're living in, okay, any piece of wisdom must be used with what? With the most delicate care, because Satan can be any turn, man. So you must always pray unto Yahweh Hashem Shai. Okay, but going back onto the story, okay, you had Israelites that was carried away into captivity into Babylon. Under Ezra's, okay, Zerubbabel, which I believe his name was also Zerubbabel, okay, but many other, Nehemiah comes to mind at the same time, okay, I believe he was contemporary with Ezra, okay, they had taken a number, okay, of Israelites back into the land of Israel, okay, to come back. But when you fast forward into the time of the Media Persians, which the Media Persians are taking down the Babylonians, when we fast forward into the time of the Media Persians, you find out that there was still Israelites dwelling in Babylon. Okay, so we've got a few instances of the diaspora that the Lord is speaking about here. But guess what? When you go into history, you find out, especially within the book of Maccabees, you find out there was a stronghold of Israelites within Egypt. That's supposed to be the land of Ham, right? But your Israelites that was already dwelling there. Okay, you read about the different churches that you had in different locations that the Israelites were coming from. Okay, in the time of Acts, you find out they was coming from all over the place, man. Okay, behold, they was dwelling Jews, devout men. I believe that's Acts 1:5 maybe. Okay, the devout men from among all the different nations, because the Israelites were scattered throughout the 4 corners of the earth. Okay, even the land of the so-called land of Ham. Okay, there is Israelites that look like Edomites, man. Okay, that look like so-called straight up so-called white people, man. These Israelites that look like so-called Chinese people, man. The Israelites were scattered throughout the 4 corners of the earth, man. Okay, now to speak specifically with the land of the so-called land of Ham, I named you the example of Egypt. Now, if you got Israelites within Egypt, they was going to increase in number. Okay, the one thing that you could tell about Israelites is that they love to have sex, man. Okay, love to have sex. They like to move around and visit different places, man. Okay, so they could have migrated all over the so-called interiors of Africa in search of new lands. Okay, the king Mensa, I believe Mensa Musu, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he was an Israelite that conquered particular lands within Africa. Again, correct me if I'm wrong within that with respect to that statement. Okay, the Gold Coast was full of all kind of Israelites, man. I'm showing you an example of Israelites here doing Israelite customs on it. That's the breastplate of the 12 tribes of Israel right there. Okay, that contains the 12 tribes of Israel, and that's amidst the Ashanti out there within Ghana. Okay, and they straight up call up on the name Yahweh. Okay, they straight up call up on the name Yahweh, man. Now they try to mix it with what? With heathenisms, but they straight up call up on the name Yahweh, man. Okay, that's documented within that book. I keep on quoting Hebrewisms in West Africa. You go out there into Nigeria, you got the similar sort of thing. Okay, I believe they have a quote unquote bastardized version of the name of the Lord that they use out there. Okay, all right, and they got certain customs and certain stories that they have that go back onto the man Israel. Now, for you Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans out there, really you Negroes out there within the land of America that call yourselves the true Israelites, if you will, if there's ever such a thing. Okay, where did you come from? Where do you think you came from? Okay, where do you think the slave ships carried you from, man? Them slave ships carried you from the interiors of Africa, man, from the west coast of Africa, the Gold Coast, and places alike, man. Which means to say that there's still Israelites over there, okay? They still Israelites over there in those particular lands that grew strong. Two examples that comes to mind. Let's look at it from a musical standpoint. Now, music is a very interesting thing. You look at it in terms of nations, okay, nationalities, okay, and stock, okay, and history. Nationality, stock, and history. Which nationality and stock? Really, I'm talking about the nation of a person, whether they're Israelite or Hamite or whatever, right? Music is a very interesting thing. Well, you see, and there's examples out there. There's a band out there in Syria called Mandinga, and they play that Latin music so well, which most likely they're part of that stock. Going back onto the example that I gave you, you think that they were actual Latin Americans, and they look like them. Okay, but they're a band out there within Romania. Okay, of which a lot of them Romanians are Jakes. Remember, Serena Williams just got beat by a Romanian, of which that chick could have been a Jake. Okay, but moving on with the examples that I made, not Syria in that case, but a Romania rather. But moving on with the examples I'm making, music is a very interesting thing. So what you find similitudes between the music that was being played, okay, around about the 70s when James Brown was doing his funk thing. You had the same thing that was uprising out there within Africa. Fela. You're telling me Fela Kuti was a Hamite? Okay, that dude was an Israelite, man. Okay, he had all kind of wives, he had flavor, he had swagger, he could play all kind of instruments, he could dance better than most of you niggas, man. Okay? Other examples that come to mind. When you had the so-called salsa movement that was happening around about the 80s and the 90s out there within Latin America, a lot of them Congolese guys that was getting down with it. Okay, because the thing about Israelites, we're families within families, but the families they might look like Judah, but he could actually be a Ishkarite. Okay, so when he hears the music, he might look like a Judah, but he might vibe more with that Issachar vibe. You see what I'm saying? All right, so music is an interesting thing, but also to the foods that we eat. When you look at the diet that's out there within the West Indies, with the West Indies, yeah, we can say the West Indies, but really I meant to say West Africa. When you look at the diet that they eat out there within West Africa and the West Indies, and then within America, it's the same goddamn diet, man. Okay? It's the same goddamn diet. And what's even more interesting is when you get a so-called Nigerian born or Ghanaian born or another Israelite born out there within Africa that was raised in America from the age of 10 years up, there's no distinguishable, okay, identifiers to say that person came from the so-called Hamitic stock. He acts just like another Israelite because he is just another Israelite, man. Okay, well, you guys out there that are teaching this doctrine that only the so-called Black Americans are Israelite, that's a false doctrine. The scripture tells you clearly and straightforward within the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter and the 64th verse, which I might as well read that now as a closing scripture, that the Lord scattered throughout the four corners of the earth the 12 tribes of Israel. A matter of fact, when the Lord said that this gospel, okay, must first be preached throughout the four corners of the earth before the ends come. Why is the gospel being taught throughout the four corners of the earth, okay, if the Israelites are only out there within America? That makes no sense, man. Okay? But it's to the Israelites that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. So you brothers out there that are in these so-called Hamitic lands, or you're out there in these so-called lands of the heathen, okay, and you jive with this truth, okay, and this truth resonates with you, don't be listening to these guys with the false doctrine, man. Okay, the Most High said he was going to scatter his people amongst all nations, man. Okay, the Lord said he was going to scatter his people amongst all nations. Okay, and like I said during the video, where do you think them slaves came from, man? Where do you think they came from? They came from a stock that was out there within predominantly the so-called transatlantic slave trade was taking slaves. Now they did have slaves coming from Europe, but it was also slaves coming from Africa, the interiors of Africa, the west, the Gold Coast, man. Okay, so let's read this one scripture here, the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter and the 64th verse. Deuteronomy 28 and 64, it says, "And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone." So it was going to be scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, man. Okay, all over the world, man. Okay, and the Lord was gonna sift us from among all those nations, man. So with that, hopefully that video was edifying. With that, I'm gonna say your praise unto Yah, Bashim Yahshai, Bashim Kakadash, double honors unto the apostles, a great millstone. Honestly, brothers, that be pushing this truth in sincerity, and hopefully that was of edification. Shalom.